all this gold before the show starts. And people don't care, it's not like with Channel 9.
Yeah, but I can
Pre-show
tell you
chat before we play the opening song.
Okay, just some context. I'd say in the last 24 hours, I've seen two people that I really, respect and enjoy their work. That's Chris Martinson and Luke Groman on two different podcasts talking about how AI is, growing so fast now that it's a serious issue. We thought we'd have more time. We thought we'd have more time to prepare, but it really is sort of coming like some sort of tsunami.
Oh, wait on. There's look at this. This is really. I see if this thing comes up. Listen to this guy. I saw this today.
Than hiring a person. It's not. The math proves it.
Put it back.
Everyone assumes AI is cheaper than hiring a person. It's not. The math proves it. Companies running AI coding agents on frontier APIs are already hitting $300 a day in token costs per agent. That's a little over 100K annually for a bot that you can't hold accountable. But that's the price people can see. The real story is the price they can't. Right now, tools like Claude Code charge developers $100 to $200 a month. But developers running agentic workflows and building real products burn through multiples of that. They are consuming far more value than they are paying for. The difference isn't efficiency, it's a subsidy. And we've seen this exact playbook before. In 2015, Uber passengers were paying just 41% of the real cost of their rides. Venture capital covered the rest. Then once the habit locked in, average Uber prices rose over 90% by 2021. AI companies are running the same strategy. Anthropic just raised $30 billion at a $380 billion valuation. They expect to spend $12 billion training models and another $7 billion running them this year alone. They don't plan to be cash flow positive until 2028, and that is considering people keep paying. That means every cheap token you're using right now is being funded by venture capital, not by real economics. So AI is not substantially cheaper than human labor. Companies have been paying subsidized prices, and when that subsidy ends, and it will, companies will realize the agents were never cheaper. They were just using someone else's credit card.
Interesting.
You have to search through the internet now to find different perspectives. You know what I mean? So, and look at what the COVID's going to kill us all. Climate change is going to kill us all. AI is going to replace us all. And we're thinking, well, are they just full of shit? You know what I mean? And is it just a fun tool to have? But because you might find people revolt. Yeah,
Mark. The reason I started off by saying they were two people, that I respect, Luke Groman and Chris Martinson. They've got a very good, level-headed, evidence-based way of looking at the world. So I'm starting to really think, so how do we make the transition from even the world where we are now to the other side, to the world of abundance, and then even if the road to abundance is a little bit shaky, say, and it's looking shaky, let me tell you, how do we get to there? And then we've got the question of purpose, because let's say what Luke Groman was saying is you don't have to replace 50% of jobs in 3 years to cause massive disruption. Even if you lose 5% per year or 10% over 18 months, that's a massive disruption. And then he starts talking about like what happened in the fall of Russia, or so this it's in that people didn't have purpose. And you've said this many times, Michael. The issue is purpose. So anyway, that's where my head's been at. Like,
well, separating two. Let's do abundance first. Now, the abundance thing is easy to answer because I think we are on the road to abundance, but we're not invited. I think that gets that out of the way.
Well,
I think they're saying, Paul, they're using the Portuguese landing on the whatever island the dodos lived on approach. As far as they're concerned, we're dodos. And I think they might even feel for us and go, look, they're really lovely. They're so clever. They put these little theories together and they build these little things, but we don't need them anymore because we got robots.
No, but that's the problem. They don't have a sense of worth
No.
like we do. The humans are anything more than bags of chemicals to them. They can't have the human perspective. That's what I've been wondering about. Like, what it is that what is it that a human does bring to the interaction? Because if we're not here anymore, in physical form, do you know what I'm trying to say? That we're special. This is what you are always saying, Michael. That as a species, we have something that AI doesn't have. We haven't yet started to explore what it is that AI lacks, and to me, until it can connect with something far greater, if it starts, solving Zen koans and stuff, maybe then I'll. okay, we've got a transcendent, intelligent being, but I suspect there will still be limitations and things that AI can't do that humans are precious for.
Well, we're in a consumer society, and if a lot of people aren't working and don't have money, how are they going to consume anything?
Yeah, that's what
generation. We're all got obesity, so that's good. So we got about 3 months before we're down to, our ideal weight where we can worry about, okay, what are we going to do starving? You know what I mean? So the population of Australia, which is like this big, we're suddenly going to get back to the 70s where we look fabulous, but we're still going to have a few issues.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand a lot of things that are going on. I mean, they're dumping hundreds of thousands or millions of tons of crap in the skies, the aluminium and so forth. And the so-called elites have to live here as well. What do they think is going to happen? I just don't understand what's going on, how people can crap in their own backyard and think that they'll come out ahead.
Yeah.
It just
look
doesn't.
At you. You were a CEO, right? Yeah, you were the head of what you were doing. Now your job in that job is problem solving. You're going to be hit with problems constantly, and you're the man that has to solve them or set a system in to solve them. What's the problem we're actually facing here? Because we've pointed out things that are wrong with the vaccine and everything. No one listens to us. It's like, for all, it's just baffling. It's all our theories, every answer we've come up with is almost like squash balls bouncing off concrete.
Right. Because the main problem, the base problem, when you get down to the nub of it all, at the root cause, is the media. If we had a media that told the truth, the average Joe Blow in the street would not stand for this crap.
Yeah.
If he knew what was going on, most people are sensible. They just want to get on with their lives. They want to have a house. They want to have kids. They want to go on holiday. They want to be healthy. They don't want to be bothered by stuff. But, all this stuff is going, they just don't know. And it's the media. I mean, it boils down to the media. If the media was honest, all of our problems would be out in the open air. And I tell you what, within a very short period of time, it would be sorted out because the population would want it to be sorted out.
Yeah, you're right, and you've got to understand. Like, there's a journalist in New Zealand now has joined with Carl and apologized and said he's sorry that he believed the science without rigorously looking into it. So that's two now. I think there's going to be more. I think more journalists are going to get sick of the lies and say, look, I want to be so I think this is good for us because they're like it's like a Judas sort of thing. They might be getting money, but at the cost of what? You're killing children, you're killing people. I mean, how are you going to live with yourself?
Well, mainstream is nibbling at this, and I'll be mentioning this in the podcast because it's hit the front page of Time magazine.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's start there. So everybody, we're let's forget the intro music. This is the pre-show chat, and we're chatting. So welcome, Dr. Phil Altman. For those who don't know, Dr. Phil Altman has been an absolute giant in the movement, coming from you in the pharmaceutical industry. I think brings great knowledge, and he's been tireless. He's been tireless even when I think he's thought, is anyone actually listening apart from the group that knows? It's that. Let's start there. How do you keep up your passion and energy when it seems you're just smashing into deaf ears?
Well, look, because I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Before COVID, I was a different person. I mean, I was a big pharma guy, as you know, Michael. My kids were vaccinated. I even got a flu vaccine, I think, in 2018. I never really thought about it. But when COVID hit and they had this experimental gene therapy, I thought, whoa, this is really serious. And I knew there was going to be a problem, but I didn't know the dimension of the problem. I could not have dreamt the dimension of the problem. And what keeps me going is just, I mean, this is scary. This is really scary stuff. We're more than 5 years into this now. And this is, to me, the greatest cover-up in human history. I can't think of anything else that even comes close to this. They injected 2/3 of the people on this planet with an experimental gene-based shot where they had limited or no safety data. I mean, let that sink in. I mean, that's
nuts. It's nuts, isn't
it? It is really nuts. The dimensions of this problem are just, it just leaves me speechless. And now more and more information is coming out. It's nice to know that some of the mainstream news media types are saying something and rethinking, but they're not really still saying it like it is.
No.
I mean, but it's happening. The front cover of Time magazine, I'm not a reader of Time magazine, but the 14th of February this year, front cover shows 4 fairly young people talking about the cancer mystery since the rollout of the vaccines. The cancer mystery. It's not a mystery.
Such a mystery, isn't it?
What could it
It's
be?
only a mystery to those people that don't want to look. The mechanism is known. The statistics are known. World authorities have come out and told people what they're seeing. It's not a mystery. And yet the mainstream news media, by and large, is silent. And it's just shocking.
Well, look at the blood clot things, those calamari blood clots. I mean, what we've been saying for ages, if they find a frog in the Amazon that has a white dot on its left cheek instead of its right cheek, they go, oh, we found a new species, and they spread it around the world like they found a new species. No one knows what this stuff is, or they're just now trying to figure out what it is, these amyloid clots. And where's the news reports? And they're finding them in all the people that are dying. They're pulling them out. We had Richard Hirschman on. he said he found one. He went to a corpse, and they still had the pipes in, or wherever they must have been. I'm not what the pipes were, but the clot had grown through the piping during the night, while the corpse was dead. Don't you think that's an interesting story? Don't you think that some newspaper somewhere should maybe do a little story on that?
No one has ever seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
And it's only occurred after the rollout of the shots. Yeah. I mean, this is nightmare stuff. When you're pulling out rubbery amyloid casts like calamari that are up to 1 meter long. No one's ever seen this. And it's not a handful of people. It's not one person in Norway and one in San Francisco and one in Argentina. No. Embalmers all over the world are seeing this. Some of them are reporting 25% of their cases of embalming. That's what they're seeing. You would have thought this would have been front page news every night. In the old days, and I'm talking about before 2020.
Before COVID. It's like BC AC. BC is before COVID AC. It's like the new BC AC. You know?
In the old days, if you had a new drug that was approved, these COVID shots weren't approved, right? They were provisionally approved. Most doctors didn't even know the difference. The difference is all the safety and efficacy data has not been submitted to fully approve the shots. The companies had up to 6 years to produce the data. They had sketchy data, limited data. They never showed that it kept people, the original clinical trial never showed it kept people out of hospital or prevented serious infection. Never. That was public knowledge in a press conference by the US FDA in December 2020. You can look it up.
You know, so, worse than it not working is very few people thought that it could make things worse, that you could actually have negative efficacy. And I was warning him, no, it's worse than it might not work. You could have antibody-dependent enhancement. You could have, it could make the disease worse for those who get the shot.
Okay. Can you name me, Paul, any drug that has negative efficacy?
Poisons. We usually call them poisons, Philip. Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I think there's been a mass poisoning that you're pointing to, and because it's the first ever genetic poisoning using synthetic genes and a transfection delivery system fully loaded with contaminated DNA from the because they didn't do the tests on the actual stuff that they gave. No. It was out of vets of genetically modified E. coli. So, you know, all the goodies, the lipopolysaccharides, all the other toxins, extremely dangerous, but they didn't bother to test that particular process. And also you got the plasmid, bits of the actual DNA that was used as a construct scattered in the soup that's within the lipid nanoparticles, which makes it a full-on gene therapy because now you're actually giving DNA. And that includes bits of the SV40 promoter enhancer gene, which you really don't want to end up in your lipid nanoparticles transfecting anywhere, because we know how important that is in preventing cancer. And I'll end my rant there, but we've seen warnings.
It's all there. SV40.
I'm just bringing up your post. I'm not ignoring you.
Even in trace amounts, Russell Broadbent, the MP, who I worked with a little bit in Parliament House in Canberra, and all this is on my Substack, wrote to the Prime Minister, brought this to his attention. There were 50 co-signatories, including yourself, myself, and 48 others, who and world-class genomic experts. I'm not a genomic expert, but there were world-class people saying, hang on, this is what we found, and it's credible, and we verified it and replicated it. Here's the assay. Get in touch with us. What did the TGA do?
Nothing.
Basically nothing. They published something on their website to say they assayed it in a different way, and really there's no problems.
Did you see how they took down the way that they do the assays too? You know, they look at, because the whole issue, DNA, RNA hybrids actually hiding the amount of contamination. And so if you could pick a convenient part, it's almost as if they were hiding it. You know, like accidentally leaving off the whole SV40 part in their submissions to the regulators. You know, they just forgot to add that part to their submission to the regulators. So I mean, it's not just smoking fire. It's like it's been burning for all of us. Philip, I think you agree. We expected an answer from Elbow, and we got and then a referral to Mark Butler, who wrote a letter and then called it misinformation. And the bureaucrats, like I say, they don't seem to understand what the fuck they've done. They just.
I mean, in my 40 years, if you had a new therapeutic that entered the marketplace, and it resulted in a reported dozen or so deaths, there would be an investigation, a really detailed investigation. I mean, some vaccines have been pulled from the market with 10 deaths. If the viewers would like to see what the stats are, they can go to a database which is based on the Adverse Drug Event Reporting System of Australia, called DAEN. And if they'd like to go to it's DAEN, it's opendaen.info. If you go there and pull that up, it's a live database based on all the adverse drug reactions that have been reported. And as of today, I just pulled it up tonight, there have been reported 1,053 deaths post-COVID vaccination. 1,053. Now, there have been drugs withdrawn for 10 deaths, 20 deaths, 50 deaths. This is 1,053 in Australia. In Australia.
So this is the website here?
Yep, that's the website, and it's searchable.
We've talked to Sharon Cousins about it, Michael.
Yes, that's right.
We talked about this on the show with Shaza. The point I want to make, Philip, is that if they've got 1,000, you've got the underreporting factor, and you've got the original Harvard Lazarus study, which was 100 to 1. I remember writing on my Substack a few years back about anaphylaxis. Now, Michael, anaphylaxis, if you get that, you know it. because people can die and die quickly from anaphylaxis. So you give the injection, and then they have the reaction, swell up, go blue, cardiac arrest, or whatever. And even in those circumstances, the underreporting factor was around 50 in several studies. So for every 1,000 that gets to the report, especially in climate that we had, where nothing could be due to the vaccine, all the deaths were anything but the shot. It could be 100, but 50 is I think is conservative, because, like I say, it's dog's bollocks obvious. You've given the shot, you get the reaction, they nearly die. You go, ooh, I think I better report this. So I don't know what the underreporting factor is, but if you multiply it by 50, have to multiply it by 50 or 100, you're starting to get to a football stadium.
So that's 100,000 deaths.
Yeah, and I've been playing this in my head, Michael's, from the beginning. There's 15 seats in the stadium. There's 100 seats. There's 1,000 seats, and I pray that it never gets to multiples of one stadium. But I worry that we're with the excess mortality, that we're probably there. But we don't have honest pathology. They don't acknowledge the clots. They don't give a shit. They certainly haven't been doing the autopsies and all that. So they're part of the problem here. They're part of the information suppression.
That's what's hard to get your head around, isn't it? Before we go on, I just want to, because we've got Phillip on to share his what he's doing. You want to quickly talk about this, Phillip? I'll just.
Oh, great. Yeah, sure. So I was invited to speak in Canberra. So it's going to be a great event. Tickets are on sale. I think they're only $20 or something like that.
Okay, that's the ticket link there?
Yeah. So let's see. The best way to get a ticket is to go to Tickety-Boo, which is spelled ticket with an E, B-O, Tickety-Boo, one word, .com.au.
It's there, Phillip. It's there. Just tell them to click the link. It's there. Yeah.
Okay. And
I will star it. So there it is.
That's on the 23rd of April in Canberra at the Awakened Church.
I think it's good that your heads are all going to the left.
I don't think we planned that.
Like there was a big wind coming through the window. Yeah, I'm ready. So, yeah. What's it going to be about, Phillip? I know it's about. Is it just about the COVID vaccine or vaccines in general now?
Well, I was asked to speak about COVID vaccines because that's where I've been for 5 years. I'm certainly not expert in the other vaccines. I know a bit about them. Judy Weileman has been in this space for many, many years. And I think what I'm going to do is just reflect on what's happened in the last 5 years and include all the latest information so people who come along can get in a very concise manner the summary of what's happened in the last 5 years. And then we will extrapolate that to what we know about the other vaccines, because there's been a huge discussion, which of course has erupted, because now that we know that no vaccine on the market has ever been evaluated properly for safety, because no vaccine has been compared against a proper placebo. It's incredible. I was in the industry for 40 years. I had no idea.
So they hid that from you. You just took it for granted.
Well, they didn't hide it. They didn't have to say it. everyone said, well, the vaccines are safe. You don't have to do these studies, right? But Plotkin, Professor Plotkin, under oath in 2018, when he was asked the question in a Senate hearing in the U.S., have any vaccines been compared in a clinical trial for safety against a proper placebo, that is just saline water or something? And he said, no. Now, if you don't do that, you can't say that they're safe. And this brings me to another point. Before COVID, it was illegal for anyone to say verbally or in writing that any drug, any vaccine, any therapeutic was safe. You could be put in jail. And there is now one.
I hear you, Philip. But all I can hear and ringing in my ears is safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective.
Now you get arrested if you do it the other way.
That was changed at the stroke of a pen by the head of the TGA for one product. And it is still the case without any supporting data being presented, being considered, being reviewed. They said, you cannot say any therapeutic is safe except COVID vaccines. And that's how they got away with it. If you go to my Substacks, you will see the regulation where they changed the wording.
Johnny Lada just asked if you're singing at the presentation.
No, I won't be singing. Let me just tell you, it just in terms of this 1,053 deaths. So this is the same incidence of reporting, the same level of reporting that we're seeing in the US. I think they're up to 35,000 deaths. If you adjust for population, it's about the same. The UK, Europe, it's everywhere. It's not just Australia. So this is occurring everywhere. And the regulatory agencies around the world, Australia, US, Canada, UK, Europe, so forth, brush it off and say, oh, just coincidence, it's COVID, it's whatever. Let me give you some numbers that will be very interesting. These are numbers that have been data mined by a group of very dedicated individuals who have gone through under Freedom of Information and pulled out the source data, whether it be incomplete or complete, that the TGA holds, that it forms the basis of the DAE and the Adverse Drug Reaction Reporting System. The TGA say there have only been 14 deaths due to the jabs, the COVID jabs, up to date, and no deaths in children. However, when you data mine, you go into their own data, there are 35 reported deaths on the same day of vaccination, on the same day. Now, the temporal association does not prove in itself cause and effect. However, the alarm bells should start ringing. And every one of those deaths should have been fully investigated. Let me tell you what happened. 11 of the 35 who died on the day of vaccination had a preliminary investigation as to the cause of death, a preliminary, brief investigation. None had a full investigation. Of the 1,053 total number of deaths reported to the TGA under DAEN. And as Paul rightly says, that number could really be 50,000 when you apply the underreporting factor, which everyone accepts is high. It's a matter of how high. Is it 100 times? Is it 50 times? Let's say it's 50 times, 50,000 deaths. So of the 1,053 deaths that were reported, 72% of the people that died within 3 weeks. 72% died within 3 weeks. Another 266 of the 1,053 had no time of death reported in relation to their report. You could have had 266 plus 35 dying on the day of vaccination. We don't know.
Well, I'm in WA. Just to, sorry to interrupt, but I come from a different perspective because I've been on the road interviewing people on, like basically in the trenches. We talked to a guy called Spider who was working as a security guard in Perth in one of the main vaccination hubs when it was going round. And he said, to his horror, that he'd often be watching two people at once getting CPR, having the defib out at once, different people.
It's that extraordinarily safe, Michael, that you need defibrillators.
And he said this was common, not rare. He'd be watching this all day. These people getting done, and the other people would just sit there watching them, and then they go up and get jabbed. And then we had another woman reach out to us from a hospital that said that the hospitals were empty. We have numerous people now who went to hospital in that time when the media said that it was full, and they'd be watching the TV in the hospital room saying, the hospitals are overflowing, and they'd look around and they were empty. One of them was right next to the COVID ward. It was like crickets in there. So we've got documented evidence of this to prove that's not true. But another nurse approached us and said before she was fired, in Perth, apparently they set up a secret ward like down in the basement, and that's where they were putting all the vaccine injured people. And that was the one that was overflowing, but it was hidden. So it's what you said at the start, Philip, where we're dealing with an evil we can't comprehend. It's not crazy now. This is like the banality of evil. It's staggering. It's staggering to comprehend what they would go to hide the fact that there was something seriously wrong with this jab.
Yeah. Look, I'm a bit new to all this legal stuff in relation to testifying, although I've been involved in lots of cases, and I'm involved in a couple cases now with doctors that need help in defending their right to practice. And there's a big human rights case in Queensland, which is ongoing now, which is coming to a head. But I've learned an awful lot. And I guess it just strikes me that the judiciary, including the coroners, who could have requested the autopsies and did not. I noticed there was a comment just below from one of the watchers here that there were no autopsies. No, there weren't any. Why? Well, the coroners are appointed by the government, and so are the judges. And I suspect that it's weighing on their minds if they brought down decisions or instructions for autopsies to be done, that the government wouldn't really like that. So maybe their career prospects would be limited. I think this is the system that may well be operating here, and I'm very worried about it. Why weren't autopsies being done? There was one large-scale series of well-documented published autopsies that was reviewed in the literature. It involved something like from memory, 400 or 450 autopsies, single cases that were reported of deaths where autopsies were performed. And they screened the papers for completeness of data and internal consistency and the qualifications of the people who reported it. So they got rid of a lot of the low-level information down to about 450 cases that were solid cases of death after vaccination, where autopsies were done. And the conclusion was by an independent committee that something like 73 or 74% of those deaths were due to the vaccine.
Yeah, I remember that paper, and I've said that if you have 72% when they went back and studied the autopsies, then that 1,053, you'd expect 72% of them to be at least vaccine related. But we've got so many deaths going on, and with the excess mortality, I understand it has come back a little bit, but it's still extraordinarily high. And
sorry, Paul, that they've raised, using the last few years, they've raised the medium death thing.
Right. So it's a rolling average, right?
But it actually, yeah.
Yeah. So it's based on the last 5 years, and the Australian Bureau of Statistics changed their formula to calculate excess deaths. And lo and behold, it reduced the number of excess deaths post-COVID. Surprise, surprise.
It's the same thing they do with the CPI statistics for inflation, and
yeah. But if people were killed in 2021 when the vaccines were rolled out, and you throw those figures, which a lot of people died post-vaccination, 2021, 2022, that's when most of the deaths have occurred. And you throw those deaths into the average figures, well, right now, it doesn't look so bad because the base level of number of deaths has been risen, right? So when you're comparing it to what's happening now, the difference is not as great. So it sort of obscures the degree of the problem.
What do you think it is if they'd gone back to, say, 2017 level of deaths, 2019, say from 2010 to 2018, compared to what's happening now? What do you think the excess mortality would be at?
Look, when I looked at this in 2022 and visited Parliament House with a group of these people that were drilling down to the excess deaths in the data, and all this work has been published. I thought at that stage that there was a minimum per year of probably somewhere around 20,000 Australian deaths due to the vaccine jabs.
Because
yeah,
I can tell.
I said at a meeting once, and it floored a lot of people, because I said the government is turning a blind eye to this. They have all these tens of thousands of unexplained deaths that are suddenly occurring, not during 2020, because there weren't any excess deaths or much of excess deaths in 2020 when the virus was most virulent. It only started to show post rollout of the vaccines. And the government took no notice of tens of thousands of more people dying every year, 2021, 2022. And I said to the audience, I said, it's sort of like one weekend Qantas decided to change the fuel that it uses for its 737s. And they replaced completely the fuel that they used to be using with a new fuel that they hadn't really tested, but they thought it'd be really good. And they put it in the planes. And as soon as they started to use it, one plane, one 737 fully loaded with 200 people, began crashing every week. And the Department of Civil Aviation thought there was nothing to look at. It was not a problem. That's the equivalent situation that we have with the vaccines, in my opinion.
See, that's what I've said, Philip. I'm not anti-vax per se, although you could cut it. I'm proud to be anti-vax, actually, but I was always pro-safety. You know, it should. When did it become uncool to talk about safety? That was always an obligation of professionals. You know, and the whole informed consent thing is to tell the whole truth. If you're going to enter into something freely, it can't include deception. It can't include lies. It can't include inducements. It can't include coercion. And the fact that they're now looking back and going, oh, we didn't coerce, we didn't force anyone. I mean, so utter bullshit. And now they're covering up the harms of their actions. And every day that I think everyone knows now. It's not because we've done such a good job. Sadly, Philip, I think it's that people can see the harms all around them now. It's like they're living in the bombed out craters of their trust in the system of the vaccines, or at least I am. And there's plenty of us in the foxholes. I'll tell you something really nice that happened today. But maybe a few months ago, we were doing Forest of the Fallen here in DY with George Keswick and Rosie Marshall and
Rosie,
and the guy came up and it was like he was telling me about his mum who had cancer. She'd had, I think, 3 shots, and she'd had chemo and radiation, and basically they'd sent her home to die. And I said, well, have you heard about the work of, that William Macus and ivermectin and fenbendazole? And now people, who came out to see her before she passed, they're coming out, you're still here. And the tumors have been regressing. They could see the tumors regressing. They didn't need the first PET scan to see, and the doctors are baffled.
It's a mystery.
The doctors are baffled, but this guy Pedro from Rio, we just had a chat at the Forest of the Fallen, and then he bumps into me on the beach today, to tell me the story of how his mum's cancer seemed to be doing much better, considering she was left for dead, literally. So, hope. There's always hope. I still wait for accountability, and I still wonder, Philip, just how many people have to die before the elephant in the room dematerializes, and then once the invisible elephant in the room dematerializes and everyone can see it, which I think is close to now, we'll have to face it. We'll have to face it.
Well, look at this, because on the road, all we meet, or you probably guys, both you probably get it too, is people talking about how many funerals they're going to. My friend Forsh, he went to 17 last year. He says, I can't do another funeral, he says. But watch this, Philip. We got you to do this, but we did it. We've done it several times. I just put this together. I think this is as powerful as any.
Okay, question 2. Stand up if you know of someone who has died of the jab or has been injured by the jab.
I remember that.
Everywhere we
I remember
go,
that.
do it at your conference. Just say, hey, look, and get someone to film it from behind you or film it. I've got 2 questions for you. Stand up if you know of anyone who died just of COVID. Maybe one person might stand up. Stand up if you know anyone's injured or killed by the vaccine. The rooms everywhere we go, the room stands up.
Yeah.
You know, it's haunting. And the people still can't see it. And they go, oh, they're all planned. Yeah, we got 250 people to say, hey, look, would you mind lying for us just to make a good clickbait video? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I will.
Can I ask you a question, Philip? If you were an air traffic investigator, a crash investigator, went out if a plane fell down, and basically everything has crashed. Our economy, our trust in the medical system and politics, everything. If you were, where would you go looking for the source of what actually brought the country or the world to basically its COVID knees? Where would you go looking for the source of this?
Boy, that's a big question. I think the seeds of this go back many years. The planning of this, even taking COVID in isolation. There's some evidence now, and I published this on my Substack, that Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein were talking about pandemic policies and control and putting in international regulations and organizations to direct how the world would respond back more than 10 years ago. So this has been in the works for a long time. And I continue to think that COVID was just a tool to see how far they could go to control the world's population, to see how far they could go to make us comply using the strategies of fear and so forth that they used. It was just a test case. That worries me, because there'll be another one, right? It might not be a virus. It might be something else. Lord knows what it could be. But this goes back a long time to control, global control through international organizations, a small group of unelected so-called elite people. They're not really.
Stop calling it elite, Philip. Stop calling it. They're satanic pedophiles. They're satanic. They're satanic children. Children factors. They're just don't call them elite. It's giving these. I don't know, the scum that just happens to have a printing press, but no morals and no humanity. So
what do we call them?
You don't have to call
have a competition, Philip. This is
they are scum.
Rename the elites.
And we basically know who they are because they all meet together, right? They all meet together. We know the organizations. We know where they meet. There's some that don't meet, that are even above the scum that we can see. But it really has rocked my world. My world, like your worlds, are completely different now. I mean, what do you believe? When you go and buy tires for your car, who do you believe now? Do you have to be an expert in rubber and tire technology to really determine what's the best tire? I mean, we used to depend on the TGA to approve drugs which were safe and efficacious, and you didn't have to do your homework. Now you have to do your homework. I don't believe them. After all this, who could believe what the TGA are saying, because after this is the greatest human catastrophe and man-made catastrophe in history, and they haven't owned up to it. So if they haven't done that over 5 years, what chance do we have of relying on them as credible authorities going forward? None, as far as I'm concerned.
They're toast. Do you know, the AI is always taking out the jobs of the lowly scum. And I know it's meant to be coming for the professionals and the tax accountants and the lawyers and the doctors. And I say, God bless it. But what about the bloody politicians and the bureaucrats? Surely AI can do a better job than most of them. And the only problem I have at the moment is AI either lies to you 10% of the time, or it makes shit up, and we're not sure which is which. Whether it's making shit up because it doesn't want to tell us what it knows, or it's lying because it actually wants to misdirect you. But apart from that, I think AI is, those are the jobs that should be going first. All the politicians, all the bureaucrats, there's a lot of shit we could get rid of, and let's get them on universal basic income, quick stick, but because they're bloody useless to us.
They are.
Can I ask, Philip? I came to your place. I've done a few interviews. You had you on the show. I came around to your place and did an interview with you a few years ago. Can I ask, how have you changed as a man? Because we've all been on an odyssey now, not a journey, an odyssey. If you decided not to participate, you had to go through all these things. How has your life changed? Or you changed? How have you changed as a man because of these last few years?
Good question. I'm much more critical of people now. And when I look closely at people, I've discovered there are fantastic people out there, but you have to find them. It's not the majority. And most of the people that I thought were my friends and so forth, and I could talk to, no, they just weren't there. My life has changed because I now have surrounded myself with people that I can trust, that have inquiring minds, that are intelligent. I'm much more discriminatory in terms of the people who I relate to and spend time with. I'm an older guy. I don't have time to sort of mess around with people who just cannot see what is happening in the world. They're just their value system is just so completely different, that's been a shock. And I must say that most people still haven't woken up. Even it's right in front of their eyes. They still haven't woken up. And I think that's been the biggest impact on me.
You think that's through choice?
What was that?
You think that's through choice, that they can sense something's wrong, but they just don't want to?
I believe it's a defense mechanism in many cases. For example, if you're a pediatrician and you have to be living under a rock not to be aware of the legitimate concerns and the data that's been coming out about vaccines in general. Most pediatricians, their main source of income is related to vaccination, one way or the other. And I mean, how could you continue to operate the way you've always operated, say before COVID, knowing what most people now know are legitimate concerns and not change your way of thinking? It's a defense mechanism. They just don't. A lot of people that I try and lead along to open their eyes, like people that I play tennis with or something like that. Not necessarily friends, they're just acquaintances. You drop little crumbs of information and you just see if they're going to bite, right? And some of them might, most of them don't, right? They don't want to know. And if you've got the injection or you've injected your child or children or grandkids, and you're now seeing this information, which is not good information. And there's no good information about the COVID jabs. There's not a single bit of good information.
Wow.
How do you cope? You just shut down. So this is how people cope. It's been an interesting exercise in human behavior to see how people cope under this degree of stress.
Can you enlighten us in what's the latest data on fertility? And because we're hearing reports that it's infertility is up, the babies. We heard from, I think, Rosemary Marshall and a few others have said funeral directors are sort of starting to talk about the amount of babies they're bearing. You know, it's unprecedented. Do you have any more information on that?
Yeah. Look, I'm not an expert in that area, but as far as I'm aware from the literature, fertility is an issue. Miscarriages are an issue, and they're continuing, and they're not going away, and they're highly, highly significant. This is one of the great impacts of the post-COVID jabs that people just aren't looking at. And some obstetricians who have stood up and said something have lost their jobs, and famous people. Mick Linden in Queensland lost his license to practice. And famous people like Professor Thorpe in the U.S. I forget where he was, in Michigan or Ohio, and I think they were going to take away his license in that state. So he moved to Florida, right? Because he said a few things. So it's
he's published some quite hard-hitting papers. You know, like he did novelty, like comparing the COVID shot to the flu shot and comparing the ratios of effects, and you go, holy shit, compared to you know, so ways of. He did the My Cycle story. Which is, remember Michael a few years ago showed you that clot that was a deciduous cast. It was like the whole inside lining. It was like super rare. It was like one of the things for the textbooks. And then during the doing of this online sort of app where women track their cycle, it documented like just, you know, off the chart numbers. For something that was previously a rare thing, and we had all the women with menstrual irregularities. I remember Dr. Zelenko and I think Malone going to the rabbinical, testifying to the rabbinical council in New York, or rabbinical court, or whatever it was, because there was concern even early on that you know, anything that can change the menstrual cycle and cause bleeding and stuff is already a concern for fertility. Now we've got like the check. Since then we've seen a doubling of neonatal mortality in Scotland, and we're going, oh, it's all around the time of the shot, you know. And of course they look at every cause except the one right in front of them, because they just can't look there. Because it's just like I guess it just glows too brightly, or it's some like a black hole. So and then you've got the check data, and what was it? 40% fewer conceptions in the vaccinated group, like 60% less eggs, and there's like all sorts of data that we've been looking at for years.
I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, just to say that it's. I've been following data point out, not one data point, but when you've got like 1,000 different data points, I think the more you have, it becomes more and more a real concern that we've impacted on human fertility. And then we're worried the idea of because you're given a genotoxic poison. We don't know that there's transgenerational effects. The child of the mother who got the jab before she conceived, even is in the cohort of increased neonatal mortality and stuff. So, and we don't know the generation after, and do you know what I mean? We don't know that this is the nature of long-term data. It takes time, but right from early on, if you were looking, you could see signs of concern.
Right, and that's a real worry, that some of these effects, the incidence is so high that, for example, if you took myocarditis in adolescents and adolescent boys, and there's been a couple of good publications on that, one in Thailand in particular, that showed like 30% of boys post-COVID vaccination jab had subclinical evidence of heart damage, myocarditis, right, with sensitive bioassays. And about 3% had clinical evidence from memory. This was a study probably 3 years ago.
I think Mansugan. I think you're talking about Mansugan. That sounds like Mansugan.
That's the one.
Yeah, it was around
it's not hard to do a prospective study. When we're talking about these things, if the government really wanted to know the truth, it wouldn't be hard to find the truth. When you have an incidence of 30% or 3% of something, if you had a study of 300 kids or 400 kids, you could reach a level of statistical significance to say with a high degree of confidence, one way or the other, that it caused it or it didn't cause it. And you would resolve the question. Why don't they do it?
I think they must.
With fertility.
You see, you end up concluding that they already know. Because if they didn't already know, why are they so busy doing the opposite of transparency and showing us the data? Instead they're attacking and withholding and asking for 75 years to release trial data, and so all that screams, has always screamed from the beginning, complicity in a crime. Complicity.
The other day, Philip, we had Liz Gunn on, and she was given a FOI document from Andrew Brigden, and it was a memorandum of understanding between the coroner, the official coroner of the head coroner of New Zealand, telling the health minister of New Zealand, this was in 2020, that COVID was not that dangerous and not that transmissible. So to me, if you're doing a crash investigation, that's crucial information. So before they banned ivermectin, banned hydroxychloroquine, whatever that thing is called.
Hydroxy.
That's it. Yeah. Before they banned that, before they rolled out the jab, they knew the population could probably survive quite well with its own natural immunity. We'd probably lose a few old people, like we lose the old people with the flu. That's what would have happened. What we know now, this is stuff we know. Over 11,000 of the deletes above were exempt from taking it because COVID was so dangerous. We better keep them exempt, and then they vaccinated the rest of the country, and then Barry. Is it Barry? What's his second name? Barry White. He brings out Barry Young. Sorry, Barry Young brings out Barry Young releases the data, which is horrifying, and all they do is send the SWAT team around to basically, drag him off to jail. And now they're trying to figure out how they can do a court case with them without the truth getting out, because that'd be like it's an extraordinary situation.
This,
so that
this is the behaviour of a complicit party. These are the behaviours of a party that actually knew what it was doing, and is deliberately. Do you know, one of the reasons I stopped debating the doctors on social media sometime around 2022 is because I didn't feel like I was debating honest players, and like now we know that a lot of the trolls have become famous in the mouse army circles as, links with the cognitive warfare branch of the UK, 77th Brigade and what have you. But for a while there, I actually hoped I was actually talking to scientists and real human beings, not cognitive warfare, specialists. And I got sick of trying to talk to people that they weren't trained to listen. They were really trained to create a story. And I watched story after story. Vitamin D is rat poison. Hydroxychloroquine is so dangerous, and yet Nana was taking it for arthritis the week before, and it was it was safe for Nana for arthritis, but it's suddenly deadly if you used it for a flu or COVID. I just watched lie after lie campaign, and
have you heard of the theory of constructs? I remember years ago where people basically were sitting on this planet, it's spinning through this vacuum, it doesn't make sense. So people build constructs of what they think reality is like. Do you think if people do that, one of the foundation blocks they use is what you said, people in power we can trust. So we don't have to look down, because the foundation of our reality, doctors can be trusted, politicians not so much trusted, but inside their hearts are in the right place. It might be a bit dodgy, but they're still concentrated on protecting Australians and the Australian future. And all these, the TGA, they're one, even though they're 99% funded by Big Pharma, which is, all they care about is the health of Australians. So they believe that, which makes them sleep well at night. And actually, that's what's stopping them waking up, because if they remove that foundation to their lives, they're suddenly where you are, Philip, where you're sitting there and going, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. Sorry to swear, but it's just sitting there like baffled, because we're baffled. I meet people all the time, and they sit there and go, I don't understand what's going on. Why aren't people angry? They're burying so many. Their children, like that. The most famous one I did, I don't know if I sent it to you, Philip. The man in Bendigo who's got 3 children with myocarditis on pacemakers, all separate batches, and he's not angry. He's just like blank. And it's 3 of his own children.
See, that's a defensive mechanism. That's a defensive thing, right? That's what I think is going on there. I know the people that I used to work with at the TGA. They're good scientists. They were thinkers. I used to have good discussions with them. I think they're just frightened. They just want to keep their jobs. Their job is just a little bit in a big machine, and they just need to do that little bit to keep their jobs. And they say, look, it's not my fault. I can't change anything. I don't make policy. I just want to keep my head down. And I suspect that's what's going on.
Because when I was in hospital, the thing that astounded me, Philip, was not only did none of the doctors they didn't even know there was a freedom community. They didn't even see the nurses, the doctors. They didn't even seem to know there's a need for a freedom community. They never heard of Hoodie. They used to come up and going, oh, you live in a bus. What do you do? I asked them, independent reporter. Oh, what do you report about? Vaccine injuries, from the COVID vabs. boom, gone. And one nurse actually said, which was astounding, she said, we brought up myocarditis, and this is the cardiology ward. And I just watched her go, oh, we had a lot of that here. And she just looked vague. And I'm thinking like, yeah, and don't you wonder why? Why you had all these people here with damaged hearts? But it's just, so I got the thing that if you took it on a Tuesday and it didn't affect you, and the hospital workers have to take vaccines all the time, if it didn't affect them, then it was just another Tuesday. If it injured them, it was the start of their odyssey. And if they decided they didn't want to participate, again, they started an odyssey because they were kicked out of society and they had to find a new life. Like the young man I interviewed yesterday used to work for the movies, Netflix and everything. You know, he was 16 years. It's so hard to get into the industry. He was working well as an assistant director. He said no to the jab. Now he works in a fruit market, struggling to survive. All the friends have abandoned him. Everyone's gone. You're out of here. It's so extraordinary how it's happened and how people are so willing to cut people out of their lives and to basically, I know they say cognitive dissonance, but I think it's a choice. I don't want to see that might the truth has almost become dangerous to people. And if everyone around you believes in the same lie, it's safe. 2 + 2 = a man can give birth. Yeah, that's the new reality. You know what I mean? And so they believe it, and it's
I just think that their religion, they have vaccines became a religion, and so that was another reason why it became boring talking to some of these advocate vaxophiles, because they have their whole Potemkin science. They have lots of journals. They have, they don't scrutinize the AI generated data, the synthetic data. They don't turn a hair when Lancet publishes this completely fabricated data, and then suddenly, hydroxychloroquine, we can't use that. We better stop all our trials of that everywhere because of the surgery. And then they subsequently find it was completely fraudulent. These are our premier papers, and it didn't just come out of nowhere. The quality of the and reproducibility is what they look at for journals. If you've done something, you said something that's true, then someone should. This is one of the points you made earlier, Philip, about the DNA contamination. How it's not just Kevin McCurden, but then place after place. David Speecher in Canada, and is it Koenig in Germany, and it just kept being replicated, and each one described their methods, and this is how you do it. And finally, the regulars are, okay, there's DNA, but it doesn't matter. It's good for you. You should have it in your cereal like DDT.
Can I ask, Philip, have you become more religious or more of a spiritual believer in this time? Because I did an interview with Reiner, and I know he's in jail now, but early on in it, I asked him where the hope was, and he said, I believe a divine being is going to come on our side. Has it affected you spiritually?
I have. It's funny you should mention that. Not in the conventional sense, I guess, but I believe that there is a higher consciousness and something that's out there that may well come to save us. I think it's been such evil in the world. And I didn't think before this that there was such a thing as evil, but now I do. I believe that some people are evil. How evil do you have to be to take an injection and inject it into a child when you know that it's toxic and it's not going to do them any good?
Yeah, I mean, they're not in danger from COVID anyway.
what sort of mindset, what sort of person would do that? What is that worth? What would make you do that? I
Sometimes it's quite
personally can't
banal.
conceive it.
Sometimes it's quite banal, Philip. I think like the banality of even like ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, were taking money from pharmaceutical and vaccine manufacturers, heavily sponsored, and then they tell their obstetricians, "Oh, it's fine to give this. It's perfectly safe and effective to give this to pregnant women, even though they've never tested it on pregnant women before." And then when they did the study after they'd started doing it, somehow they couldn't get enough numbers, or the numbers stopped just before statistical significance somehow, and they decided not. So great crime, but you're just a good member of ACOG. You're the College of Obstetricians. You're part of the team. You're with the these were the sort of people that were involved with ACIP, and bringing in all their conflicts of interest, which is another word for corruption, into the whole process. So we have to get the corruption out. Maybe that's the hope of AI, that if we actually do get a proper truth-seeking AI, not one with certain blind spots that make it lie and dissemble, proper truth-seeking, I think we're probably closer to the truth than the 77th Brigade and other affiliated cognitive warfare specialists, although they did a fucking excellent job. But it's wearing off, and I think they've lost. But it's only a matter of time, and unfortunately, it's just a reality that is going to is I think what's. If the people weren't dying, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. If we weren't seeing the effects, and if the people in the community didn't see it, then we wouldn't be talking about this shit 5 years later. But we did the Forest of the Fallen like the other last week, and people coming up and still saying, thank you for what you're doing. It's we don't have nearly as many deranged Vaxophile haters, as there might have been a few years ago. So they've lost that war, but we're still completely disorganized. We're still waiting for RFK and America to save us. And so far, Florida shows the most sense of all the Western places you could be as a scientist or a doctor. And let's hope that they start something that will get emulated across the world.
Can I going back to the religious thing, Phil? We can't debate anymore, but we used to debate pre-COVID. No doubt in your career, you would have had rigorous debates with people about many things. But I'm guessing that if they had a religion, like say they were Jehovah or Islamic or any religion, you generally didn't debate religion because there was no point. It was a religious belief.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've been really looking at this. So I was a part of all the big marches early on, and all the people in the marches were carrying religious emblems and saying this is spiritual war. But if you think of it, and I know Paul's heard this, but if you think of it, if there's a disaster, usually politicians always came out and said, let's keep the families of the victims in our prayers. They never said that with COVID. They never mentioned God with COVID. And the churches were all closed, which in a way is telling the people, this is an act, COVID is an act of God, and the churches are all closed, so you can't get in to talk to God about it. Basically, this could be the end of us. Maybe, I know this is bad, maybe God has come along and said, look, I've had enough. I'm just going to wipe out a load of you. But it's okay because we have a new God who can protect you from the old God, the vaccines. And the new church are the vaccination centers. And the new mass is every morning at 11 o'clock. The premier would get on with the health minister and they would go, we lost a 110-year-old woman last night.
who died of COVID. You know, it was really sad because she just met a fella and was going to pump out a couple of kids and get a house and get a mortgage, and and so I wonder if people were converted, and that's why they were so frightened of death, because there was a sense. I know it sounds bizarre, but there was a sense there was no God when they really asked the question, and so they converted to the needle to protect them, and that's why they can't debate, because it's a religious belief they have. Like Dr. Dan in here, it's it's like having a conversation with a basketball, and so you want to turn that off. So it's almost like, and that's what I put it to. You could debate anything before COVID except religion, and now the one thing you can't debate is vaccines. It's on the same scale. I just wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, they wanted us to believe in them. It was total control by the government, and a lot of governments don't like religion for a good reason. If you believed in religion, then you don't, and that's your priority. Then you don't believe in government first, and a lot of governments want you to believe in them, control, not the family, not religion, in them, and they scared the pants off people, and people fell for it. People really fell for it, but the fear campaign was really well done. You have to give them credit. It was very, very well thought out and planned and executed incredibly well. And that's what they were doing. It was control.
So final question. Oh, sorry, Paul, you go ahead. Then I've got a final question.
Yeah, 9/11 was, one of those times where fear was jacked up. And I remember the whole Grim Reaper HIV campaign in the 80s. That was some really good work, developing fear porn. So they've been at this game for a long time. They've just gotten really good at it. And somehow also created a blind spot in people, somehow held together by mainstream media as your sole source of truth. They've managed to shape a blind spot that obscures things that we can all see. So we're living in this very live world where those who put the glasses on are going, holy F, and they're just walking around taking in all the programming and signals that they need. All right, Michael, you have a question?
I do have a question. Based on what I said, this is Wendy. She's reading my book today. Thank you, Wendy. I'm up to the section where the lady is going to the church to talk to her God. I remember this. She met me at the march, and the security guards wouldn't allow her to enter. So they had security guards all in black. I hate to say they were Muslims. They were, unfortunately. So they had Muslim security guards banning Christians from going into the church. And she found the Church of Freedom that we had set up on the shrine, or the steps of remembrance, the steps. So the church was actually outside, and the people in the marches. I told Damien Richardson, who I was working with then, this is a church. This is a human church. There's no priests or anything. But look, people are doing crosses. People are saying the Hail Mary over the megaphones. I mean, that's how extraordinary it was. It was more than a protest. It was like people searching for something or coming together. The question, though, coming here now, Philip, and I want an honest answer, because we can't have falseness. But where do you see the hope going forward, or can't you see it yet from where you are?
Look, I communicate with a lot of people that are on the same page, and I mean that's one reason why I'm here now. The reason why Paul is here, because I think we both believe that truth will win in the end. It may take a while, but truth will win in the end, and it's worth pursuing. There you go, 832. I'm not prepared to give up, and I just couldn't face a world where good people don't stand up for doing the right thing. And I think if we keep plugging away, eventually we're going to get there. And every person that I speak to, I have a chance, even if it's a small chance, of opening their eyes so that they can think. I don't want them to be an anti-vaxxer. I just want them to think and to search for the truth and to make up their own minds. Yeah. And I've talked to so many people now, and a fraction of them have opened their eyes. Even my neighbor across the way said something to me just the other day, which made me smile. He realizes now what was done. So that's just one person, but it's one person, and I'll keep going for as long as I can keep going.
There's I write an inscription in the front of the book, and one thing I've been writing lately is that darkness hates the light, and the brightest light is the truth, which is why we are obligated to keep searching for it. And I think that's what we're all doing. You know, we do find little clues here and there, but actually we're searching for the truth, and that will eventually banish the light once it's got out. And you've done such a great job of trying to document that. Same with Oosterhuis here. Such a great job of basically finding this light. And the light can just be the facts, but it also can be like these reporters who are leaving the ship now and basically apologizing, the side of teetering on joining us. Maybe they're just searching for the money, but I've got a feeling that maybe they just can't keep selling the lies. And our souls are built for redemption, you know, and so we just don't know what's coming. Basically, what I've been saying lately, we're the first generation in history where the future is behind us and unwritten. Just no one knows. It's all up for grabs. So let's sell your show once before we go again. I'll just bring up the picture and the thing. So this is on the 23rd of April.
So even if you can't go, if you're listening and you can't go, please spread the word. And we'll all be speaking in the belly of the beast in Canberra, right? So I'm hoping that some staffers from Parliament House might slip into the meeting.
Yeah, cool. That'd be
I
want to take bets on that?
Judy Williman, I did a podcast with her in 2021, and she's very knowledgeable about this. And as you say, she's been at this for a long time.
Yeah.
I've just got a few other things to put up while we're here. This is I'll just do this. So and because the other thing too of going around is like we're here in Perth, and this weekend they do this thing called the Walk of Shame, where basically let's see if I can find it. They walk down the street, they do a few speeches, but they give an open mic to people, and I think that's what Paul is doing at the Forest of the Fallen, and people are talking. You know, like even this, just this. I saw this meme. This was incredible because this sums it up beautifully if it comes up. You shouldn't need an exemption to opt out of a medical procedure that has death as a possible adverse reaction. I mean, it's just common sense, you know. So, I just, and that's what I admire is that this community that we're in is tired. It hasn't had much success, but it just keeps plugging and plugging and plugging away. So this Saturday, I'm a part of the Walk of Shame, which is Saturday, 7th March, 11:30 to 1:30, and that's in Forest Place. So I'll be there with Stuart and Richie from Max Freedom, and then on the 15th, I'm at Topolini's at 2:30, and we're going to be there having as well with the great Robin from Courage is the Cure, and that's where it is. I'd like you to thank you for coming on, Philip. It's always an honor to have you on. I really admire, and I don't think people realize how much you've had to sacrifice, because you literally wear Big Pharma. I mean, Big Pharma could probably easily reach out and go, Phil, you want $1 billion? Look, we'll give you $1 billion. Epstein Island's empty at the moment. You can have that. You know what I mean? It's have to do what he did, but come on, man, whatever you want. And here you are, searching, trying to save us from what you see as a great evil. You know, it's quite a beautiful thing. There's something I saw the other day. The society always celebrates its compliant while they're alive, and its renegades once they're dead. And I hate to say it, but I think this is what we're looking at. So you know, it's not about a prize anymore. It's just about humanity itself. I really feel humanity itself is under real threat. Yeah. Anything you'd like to say, Paul, to take us out?
No, great to see you, Philip, and great talk and great catching up. I think we've been at this fight for a while now. You know, I suspect we've actually had. There are times when I look at how far we've come. You know, if you told me that I'd be in this world, the only thing that wouldn't have made sense to me is the lack of action being taken. But even that will happen eventually, because we're in a world where everyone knows us now. You know, there's some who have the blind spot well and truly welded right in front of them, but the world knows. So long as we keep chipping away, and your Substack is good value.
Put the Substack into a novel. We have to because Philip, you go back in Facebook now, 3, 4, 5 years ago, all our posts have been deleted. Substack will probably do it too. I hate to say it. I know you've downloaded it, but you could you could even put it in 3 parts. The first part, 21 to 22, 23, and then it's important.
I should. Yeah, there's 450 of them there.
But it's important, Philip. It really is important work. Yeah. Anyway, good luck to you. God bless, man. And thank you for being you. And we're blessed to have you, honestly. Yeah. And we're going to go out with this song. So this is Did to Say I. That's see, my green screen now comes with my father.
Hello. Just doing my watering.
So I was in country town in Victoria, and I was told the story of a family living on a farm, to a brother and sister in their early 20s, a father and a mother, and they all took the jab because they thought they were doing the right thing. The daughter died first, the son died a few weeks later, the father died a few months later in the field, and the wife was left alone with the farm, and the farm just went into ruin because she couldn't be bothered, and the banks were coming for it. And she didn't want to do an interview, but so I put it into poetry, and then AI, the evil AI, put it into song. So we're going to go out with this. This is called The Farmer's Wife. And yeah, what else are you going to do? Anyway, take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.
We were farmers near Castlemaine when COVID came and shut our whole town down. And as the kids and I hid at home, my husband risked it all by working to keep our little farm alive, whilst I did everything that the government told me to. And I made sure that my kids followed suit. I'd always thought that the end of it all would be another war, and not me and my grown kids sitting here watching the TV, and not me and my kids watching TV. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind. But then the vaccines arrived to save us all, so we lined up and rolled up our sleeves. We lined up and rolled up our sleeves, gratefully, 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 gratefully. On a Monday night, my daughter suddenly died when a blood clot burst inside her lungs. Then a few weeks later, my husband found my son on our kitchen floor. We found our son dead on our kitchen floor. We buried our beautiful kids with all of their unrealized dreams. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind. And everyone knew what had happened, but no one would say. Together they were all as silent as the moon. And then COVID moved on, just like the flu. The only difference is that I was now alone. For my husband is gone now too. Our doctor told me that his heart that was so strong, it had seen him build this farm, had just suddenly given way. Had just suddenly given way. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind. So now I'm selling the farm, I mean, what else can I do? The fences need repairing and the harvest is long overdue. Plus I know the bank will come knocking soon. I know the bank will come knocking soon. And outside the windows, the wheat continues to grow as the barley rolls and dances with the wind. And outside